Book 6, The Boo-Boos and Santa Claus. Christmas Eve! Hurrah, hurrah! Bunty and her little friends, the Boo-Boos, were ever so excited. "Help me to hang my stocking up, Boos," cried Bunty, when she was cozily into her nightie. "Santa Claus comes tonight, and I hope he will leave me some nice toys." "Will he leave any for us?" asked the Boo-Boos eagerly. They loved toys and things. "There are an awful lot of you," growled Mops the dog. "Besides, he'll never get down your chimney." "I think he'll arrange somehow, dears," said the little girl. "Don't take any notice of Mops. He is only cross because he hasn't any stockings to hang up. That's why." When Bunty was tucked up safely in bed, the Boo-Boos, dear little creatures, ran back to their little doll's house, home in the garden. They loved their little house and were ever so happy and comfy in it, but it was small. Mops was right. Santa Claus would never get down that chimney, and there would be no toys or anything, and everything would be horrid. "I know," said the king suddenly. "Let's hang them up outside." Clever fellow. What a splendid plan. In 2 winks, all the little stockings were hanging in a row on the clothesline, and the Boos were fast asleep in bed. All but one. He could not sleep at all. "Santa will only think they are hanging out to dry," he whispered to himself. "I'm sure Bunty never hung her stocking up in the garden. I think I'll go and meet Santa and just explain how it all is." The little fellow crept out of bed and was soon through the front door and away. "Funny carryings on," said the rabbit, who was on his way to a party. "Suppose they think the washing will dry in the moonshine. Silly creatures." Hardly had the small Boo departed than all the other Boos sat up in bed. You see, Boo-Boos nearly all think about the same thing at about the same time. They are made like that. "Let's," they cried in chorus, "let's go and meet Santa Claus and tell him where to find our stockings." They all agreed it was a splendid idea, and one and all got up and set out. They wandered quite a long way and were nearly giving up hope of ever finding him, when suddenly they espied a very nice old gentleman having a nap in the snow. A big tear was trickling down his cheek, and by his side was a huge bag of toys. "Good evening," said the king of the Boos, gently tapping him. The old gentleman opened his eyes. Yes, he was the very image of that picture in Bunty's nursery. Yes, he was Santa Claus. "I'm in such trouble," said Santa Claus sadly. "Such awful trouble. My reindeer took fright. I think it was what you call a motor car, flashed by and startled the poor creatures. And they're gone, gone, gone. and the dear children will get no toys this night." "But Santa," said the king, politely yet cheerfully, "your toys are here. Why can't the children have them, even if the reindeer have gone?" "My address book was in the sledge, and the reindeer have run away with it," replied the old gentleman sadly. The tear fell with a splash onto his fur. "I shan't know which house to go to." "We'll help," cried the Boos, and so they did, and were soon climbing on to window-sills and peeping through window curtains in search of houses with small children in them. "Child here," they called, and Santa was soon on the roof and climbing down the chimney. But more trouble, too terrible. The poor dear old thing was stuck. He was much too big to get down that chimney. There he was. "I've forgotten the chimney dust. It's in the sledge, and the reindeer have run away with it. Oh dear, oh dear. Whatever shall I do?" cried Santa. "Chimney dust?" asked the Boos. "Whatever is that?" Santa explained. The only way he could possibly get down chimneys was to rub a little of the magic chimney dust onto his shoulders. Then he and the toys would become small enough to get down comfortably. How wonderful! "I must go and find it," said the king. He hurried away, climbing down from the roof, and was soon running along the highway. "Oh, have you seen a reindeer running away with a book in its sledge?" he asked everyone he met. But no one had. Presently he met a postman. "Oh, have you seen a book with a sledge in its reindeer?" asked the little king, rather sadly muddled by this time. The postman held out a book. "This it?" he asked. "Someone's address book, it looks like. Funny one, though." And he read out one of the addresses. "Little Winnie, girl, 3rd chimney on the right, Duke Street." "Oh, thank you," replied the king. "I'm sorry," said the postman, handing the precious book to him. "I'm afraid I've used the last page to light my pipe with." The king flew back, and wasn't Santa pleased to see him. "I could only find the address book," the king told him rather sadly. "I'm afraid that won't help you down the chimney." "Open the book," replied Santa. "The packet of chimney dust is in there." And sure enough, it was. What a good thing! The Boo-Boos soon rubbed some of the precious stuff on Santa's shoulders, and everyone was mightily relieved when they saw him gradually but surely slipping down the chimney. "We'll go down too, to help," cried the Boos. And so they did. And didn't they just love filling all the dear little stockings? And didn't they fill them until the little stockings were nearly bursting with goodies? Rather. Now, how was Santa Claus to get home? The reindeer had gone. What was to be done? A friendly aeroplane came flying by and gladly offered to take him. "Where to?" asked the pilot. The Boos, like most small people, just longed to know where Santa Claus came from, listened with all their little ears. But Santa Claus, artful old gentleman, just whispered ever so quietly, and off they went. And it is just as well the Boos didn't hear, for, as you know, if once a small child ever finds out where Santa comes from, he never comes to him again. Now, what was happening all this time to the first little Boo who went out to find Santa Claus? He too wandered a long way, but he did not find him like the others did. No, poor little chap, he only found a duck pond, and he fell right into it, poor dear thing. Fortunately, there was a cottage close by, and the cottager's wife, hearing the splash, rushed out and rescued the poor little chap. "Gracious me!" she cried. "I must put his feet into hot water at once. He will catch a dreadful cold if I don't." And sure enough, before the Boo could realize what was happening, his little suit was hanging up to dry, and he, tucked up in a warm towel, had his feet in nice warm water. "You won't go out again tonight," said the good woman. "You shall sleep in my little girlie's bed. It's much too late for anyone to be out, much less a little wee thing like you." So she took him up and tenderly laid him down beside her own little daughter. When she had gone, the Boo, who was much too excited to sleep, sat up in bed. "What a darling little girl," he whispered to himself. "Almost as sweet as Bunty. I see she has hung her stocking up. Think I'll keep awake," thought the Boo. "Then I can tell Santa Claus about our stockings after all." But Santa was a long time coming. The hours all gradually went by, and the daylight was beginning to creep in through the curtains. No, Santa Claus did not come. It was the house on the last page of the address book. Too sad. "I'm afraid," said Santa Claus, when all the stockings were finished, "I'm sadly afraid we've left one child out. You see, the address is on that page the postman took to light his pipe." "Poor wee kitty," sighed the tender-hearted little Boos. "How awfully disappointed she will be." But there was nothing to be done. You can't fill a stocking if you don't know where it is. And that's all there is to it. How disappointed she will be to find no toys, thought the Boo-Boo sadly. "I wish I could find her some. Why, yes, I will. I will get into the stocking myself. She might like to have a real live Boo-Boo for a dolly. Happy idea!" In a second, he was out of bed and climbing into the empty stocking, and very sweet he looked in it. And when the morning came, you can imagine the great joy. The little arms outstretched for the lovely darling smiling down at the little girlie and begging to be cuddled. "This is the bestest thing I have ever found in my stocking," she cried. And the Boo was so happy. "Will you all come with me?" asked the Boo, "to Bunty's mother's house? They will love to have you spend Christmas with them, and to thank you for looking after me so nicely." The cottager and his wife and girlie were delighted. "We would love to," they cried. "But it is rather far for Betty to walk," said the cottager. "I know. Betty shall go on her toboggan, and we bigger ones will walk." Happy idea! In 2 minutes, Betty was wrapped up in her little red coat and cap, and she and the Boo were off down the hill. How they did laugh when bump, bumpty bump, they went over a stone and the Boo landed on the snow. However, they all safely arrived, and you can imagine how pleased everyone was to see them. I simply cannot tell you all the joy and happiness of that Christmas day. And there was a most scrumptious dinner, just all the good things everyone likes best. And you should have seen the pudding, and the crackers, and the sweeties. Oh, and everything. The Boos, one and all, thought they were dreaming when they saw the Christmas tree. "Oh, how beautiful! Is it real?" they gasped. "Quite real," said Bunty happily. "And the king shall have the queen from the top and live happily ever after." How everyone laughed, and how happy they all were. I really think it was the happiest Christmas that had ever been. "I wonder," said the king, when it was nearly all over, "I wonder how and when Santa Claus filled our stockings like he did. We did not see him do it." "Ah," said Bunty's mother, "Santa Claus has other willing helpers as well as Boo-Boos. And now, dears, 3 cheers for Santa Claus, 3 cheers for Christmas. Hurrah, hurrah, hurrah!" And, of course, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without the mistletoe. The king found Bunty standing under it. He was soon up in her arms, giving her a huge, loving Christmas kiss. "Our turn next!" cried all the other Boos. So Bunty kissed and kissed them all round. Lucky creatures, and everyone was so happy. "We wish everybody in the world many, many happy Christmases," they cried. And so say all of us.